RFK Jr. is a danger and a threat to Americans' health. Or is he? RFK Jr. has been just obliterated in the media for firing Dr. Susan Monterez on August 28th, who is now the former CDC director. And if you Googled it in the following 48 to 72 hours, what you saw was negative headline after negative headline, all echoing the same message, that RFK Jr. is dangerous and a threat to public health, and therefore Americans should be afraid. It almost doesn't matter which outlet you checked, CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, pretty much all of the major players are all pushing the same panic. But what you didn't see in those headlines were RFK Jr.'s own words. You didn't see what he's actually said or why he did it, but rather what you saw was scathing commentary about RFK Jr. himself. Because here's what's really happening. Despite all the outrage about Americans' health, children's health, vaccines, and science, what this is really about is power. And fear is the establishment's favorite weapon for keeping power in place. And they're wielding another powerful weapon right before our eyes, one we've seen many times, but maybe never noticed. And if you don't see it, stick with me because by the end, it'll be as clear as day. Here's what happened leading to this moment. RFK Jr. removed the CDC's top vaccine advisors and ousted the CDC director, which then led to a string of resignations and ultimately the media meltdown. But here's the thing. This really isn't surprising because this is what he ran on and so did President Trump. Both of them won on waves of populist momentum because a massive portion of American public lost faith in our institutions, especially during COVID and especially the CDC. The CDC didn't just make mistakes, it lost credibility, especially with the vaccine, which up until recently was still being recommended to pregnant women and healthy kids, despite incomplete data and growing red flags. So it's quite possible the restructuring of this institution, including these firings, is part of the mandate Trump was elected on. But the establishment class, with their megaphones known as the mainstream media, aren't having it. The headlines aren't just negative, they're engineered to trigger fear. They're not saying he's wrong, they're saying he's dangerous. That's a completely different playbook. They lead with phrases like threat to children, Americans in danger, public health at risk. This language being used here should not go unnoticed. This is something I talk about a lot because messaging that leads with emotion is particularly powerful for two reasons. One, because it creates belief. Messaging that triggers emotion creates a feeling in our nervous system which primes us psychologically to believe what we're being told. And number two, it's designed to activate. Messaging grounded in fear specifically bypasses our logic and makes us more likely to blindly accept and internalize the constructed narrative. Which brings me to the most obvious conclusion here, the thing that's really happening. Let's call a spade a spade. It's a smear campaign. A smear campaign isn't just about criticism. It's a coordinated effort to destroy someone's credibility by flooding the public with emotionally charged, one-sided messaging. Let me show you how RFK Jr.'s current media storm fits this pattern to a T. First, overwhelming negative coverage. Every top headline paints him as dangerous. It's not isolated, it's a wave. Just look at it. In the span of hours and days. Character attacks over substance. The focus isn't on policy, it's personal. RFK Jr. is labeled as a promoter of vaccine conspiracies, weaponized experts, and omission of context. Almost every article leans on credentialed voices to condemn him. Former CDC directors, public health officials, academic elites. But there's no real engagement with his stated goals and no context about the CDC's loss of public trust during COVID. And no mention that this is the exact reform he ran on. Timing and amplification. The coverage initially spiked across all major outlets within about 48 hours, then echoed globally through The Guardian, Reuters, and others. That's not organic, that's coordinated. By all accounts, this is textbook smear campaign, and it's happening in real time. The question is why? Is it warranted? Are some of his decisions really taking things too far? Should Americans be worried? Or is there something bigger happening here and as Americans we're simply caught in the crosshairs? Tell me what you think. But consider this. In 2024, pharmaceutical companies like these guys spent over $10.1 billion on advertising. And on evening news alone, Nearly a quarter of all ad time is funded by Big Pharma. So when you watch those networks lose their mind over RFK Jr. purging vaccine advisors, ask yourself, are you watching journalism or are you watching sponsored panic? And what about the American people in all this? Where are they? Well, a portion of them at least are in their bubbles, the bubbles we all live in on social media. Just look at the contrasting opinions per network. When you watch News Nation's coverage of this story, a network known as middle of the road, not left or right, but more independent, and you scroll to their comments, this is what you see. Overwhelming support for RFK Jr. on his mission to reform. But when you scroll to the comment section of CNN's YouTube channel, which is known as a left-leaning network, this is what you see. Overwhelming support of the elite establishment and status quo. So who's on the right side of history? I guess time will tell. Because whether you like RFK Jr. or not, whether you agree with him or not, or whether you think he's dangerous just by association, which, by the way, the media would agree with you on, you can't argue the fact that the majority of Americans, as proven by our recent election, did mandate this. Because RFK Jr., who was up until recently on the left, went independent, citing institutional corruption and manipulation as his reason for leaving the left, effectively rejecting the establishment and joining a populist movement, which only tells us that this isn't about left versus right anymore. This is institutional power versus populism. Now, don't get me wrong, this isn't about completely agreeing with everything that RFK Jr. does or says, but it also isn't about buying into the narrative that he's dangerous. This is more about what happens when a person comes against the machine. All you have to do is open your eyes and look around. The power struggle is on full display, and our media wants you to see it one way. But I'd challenge you to go deeper and to recognize a smear campaign when you see one. Next time you see a flood of panic headlines like this, ask yourself, who am I hearing from? Who am I not hearing from? Who benefits from me believing this? And what's the other side of the story? Because real media literacy doesn't mean blindly trusting the loudest voices being amplified and repeated. It means pausing, digging deeper, and looking at a story from all angles, and coming to your own conclusion, and making up your own mind. As a rule of thumb, I would say don't let a smear campaign do that for you. And on that note, until next time, stay curious and stay grounded. Thanks for watching. If you liked that video, check out this video next. And if you like this kind of content, please subscribe to my channel. I drop a new video every week.